And this is going to be all around designing with humans in mind. So please give a warm track 2 welcome to Alex Manley.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us in track 2. For the next 20 minutes, I am going to encourage you to wear a different hat. I would like you to wear the hat of a psychologist. And you might be thinking, Alex, why are you asking me to wear a hat of a psychologist? Well, my view is that psychology, since inception, has infiltrated the marketing space. There is consistently overlap right back from Mad Men times when advertising really came to life. And you can see that it's still infiltrating how marketing is changing in the landscape with tech and AI. And I'm willing to bet that once you see this, you're not going to unsee it. So as you think about brain and deep mind merging together to create Gemini, as you think about anthropic, which is from the word anthropos, meaning human, and of course, this morning, or I think this afternoon now, you're all sat here at Think Summit. And I've observed it too with my peers in the industry, this crossover between marketing as a discipline and psychology as a discipline. Just last night at our customer advisory board, one of the senior clients there said that actually he has a qualification as a psychotherapist alongside his marketing role. One of our senior clients over in the US opted to take a psychology master's instead of an MBA. And myself, I've just finished a master's in psychotherapy as well in my spare time. So, in my role as a strategist, I'm the Senior Director for Strategy in the UK for financial services and travel. We think deeply about how to have conversations at a one-to-one level. And with our psychologist hats on, I hope that I'm going to take you on a journey of how to look at that slightly differently this morning, starting with the real basics. So, psychology hats on. Raise your hand if you've heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Of course, many hands raised, really the basics, the fundamentals of psychology. For those of you that might be less familiar with Maslow, this pyramid was brought to life in the mid-1940s and developed in the 1950s. And the idea is that this pyramid links to motivations from a psychological perspective, starting with physiological needs, so you can think about food and water. Safety needs is not being under threat, thinking about shelter, love and belonging, thinking about family and friendships. And then esteem is really, what do we think of ourselves? How do we feel that we're recognized? And then self-actualization is this kind of pinnacle of how do we arrive as a whole human being. And the way Maslow described this was deficiency needs. So thinking at the bottom of this pyramid, how do we meet those needs of each and every individual? What's motivating them? And then into growth needs with the self-actualization piece. And as I think about the history of marketing, it's really these growth needs, the self-actualization piece, that was born of this time. You can think of the 1950s, that Mad Men era where people decided, we're not selling products, we are selling a lifestyle. And I think this is still coming through in a very different way in 2025. One thing that was less well understood about Maslow's theory was that it's not linear. And as you learned this morning, marketing is increasingly becoming less linear, doing away with the calendar of marketing and really thinking at a one-to-one level what motivates your customers and how you can meet their needs. So over the next 15 minutes or so, we're going to go line by line and think about, as marketers with psychologists hats on, how can you apply this to your customer journeys right now for your brands? So we're going to start with physiological needs. From a marketer's perspective, I'll label this functional needs. And you can think about some of the stats, right, in terms of functional needs, that user experience perspective. This stat was interesting to me, and I nearly didn't put it on the slide because I don't believe it. 40% of consumers won't wait 10 seconds for a website to respond, and 1 in 9 will bail after 5 seconds. And I feel like in 2025, that's an incredibly long time. And I would be willing to bet bet that for Gen Z, if this was exclusively for Gen Z, they wouldn't even wait a second for that user experience. So really meeting that physiological functional need. We know that environment has an impact as well. As an example, the weather can really influence how we feel as humans and therefore how we feel with the brands that we interact with. Weather, as an example, can increase excitement by 4.5 times. So out in the wild, I love this example from Hiscox, an insurer in the UK. And this is a direct mail. So this is landing on your doormat. And they deliberately kind of splash this with a load of red wine to kind of tap into that motivation, that need from a functional perspective. So we all know how familiar it is to think, oh, I didn't expect that to happen. And so tapping into that home and contents insurance piece is done really creatively here without words. From a Movable Ink perspective, thinking about that baseline functional need, I love how TurboTax, who are a fintech that focus on tax filing over in the US, have thought about where their customers are and how they can meet those most basic functional needs. So at a straightforward level, tell us if you filed your tax return yet. No, I still have to file. I filed an extension. Actually, I filed elsewhere, or I've already filed with TurboTax. And this gives them the opportunity to really work with each and every customer based on the functional need that they require. I mentioned weather very briefly. I really like how Lifetime Fitness are thinking about bringing in that contextual information into their communications. And the way that they're using weather as a forecast here to encourage engagement with their outdoor pools, knowing that there's going to be more excitement around using that type of product, driving that footfall in that space. And they saw a 10% lift in engagement by including this contextual data. So back to our framework, let's think about safety needs. And I'm going to reframe this from a marketer's perspective as trust. And I know you're all thinking, yes, Alex, we know trust is important, so what? Well, let me help give this a different angle. Most of you in this room will be CRM marketers, and the mandate is really clear around how you can influence brand loyalty. In fact, consumers say that a positive customer experience has a much more significant impact on their loyalty than advertising. And we know that in the world of AI, there is a mandate for trust surrounding those initiatives as well. So 61% of consumers currently are really encouraging brands to be more trustworthy and more transparent around their AI practices. And I really like how fintech, Monzo, are thinking about trust within that user experience piece. So the examples that you can see behind me on the screen are thinking about how they can instill that trust within that user experience. So on the left-hand side, the orange example shows that a customer has gone into the app, checked who is calling them at that time, so they're live on a phone call, and Monzo is able to say to them, hey, it's not us. So if they're saying that it is us, this might be fraudulent behavior and you should hang up the phone. If a customer goes into the app and they are on the phone to Monzo, Monzo is able to confirm and instill that trust, including showing who they're on the phone to of Monzo's team. And I really like, from a Movable Ink perspective, how our clients are thinking about bringing that tailored support to really instill that trust in a personalized way. This brand are bringing into their email communications the closest location of the branch to them. They are showing the next available appointment, and they're even showing the individual that each customer might get a chance to meet if they book. So a great way to tailor that experience and instill that trust. Next, moving on to love and belonging. So love and belonging, I would describe as community with a marketer's lens. And community, of course, has exponentially increased and become more important over the last 2 decades, with social media making that a really figural part of most brands' marketing initiatives. We know that 76% of consumers say they're more likely to buy from a brand that fosters a strong community. That's kind of no surprise, right? And 66% of brand community members say that they are completely loyal to that brand. And these are pretty big numbers. But I was thinking about, what does community mean to me? And if I'm really honest, I think there's an in real life experience that first comes to mind when I think about community. So this image is an image of Brighton. I've lived there for many, many years, and it's a very vibrant community. So for those of you that might be new to the UK, welcome here today. Brighton is almost like a microclimate of activity. This is a really brightly colored picture, and if it had people in it, you'd see how brightly colored they were as well. And as you walk around Brighton, you can really feel that sense of community, and I truly believe that there's nowhere else like it in the UK. But if you visited Brighton, you would also see a scene like this. So I pray for you if you decide to go and eat your chips on the beach, because you are going to be attacked by gigantic seagulls. And so pairing these two things together, I loved how IKEA really took the initiative to show that they want to be part of this community when they first launched their first Brighton store. And it looked like this. So this is a really great way to kind of give that wink and a nudge to say, hey, we're new around here, but we kind of get you as well. So these out-of-home examples were posted around the city, and they really didn't require many words because they were demonstrating how they could belong in this new community. And we know that not using many words is a really great way to foster community when it comes to data as well. And I love this example from Movable client Bloomberg. They were able to leverage data visualization within a new launch of a game called Pointed, and they were able to compare results with their wider community at a one-to-one individual level. So what you can see on this screen is different graphs, different interpretations of how the game's going, but it's doing that all with the community in mind. And you can see that this approach really works. They had a 45% lift in engagement. So now moving on to esteem. I mentioned at the beginning that Maslow described this as how we think of ourselves, how we feel recognized in the world. And with our marketers' hats on, we can think about this as recognition. Now, as we think about how consumers interact with brands, of course, I don't need to tell this room that consumers are more likely to make a repeat purchase when things are personalized. And I would argue that that's because they're feeling recognized from a psychological perspective. And 65% of consumers say that they feel that being recognized by an event incentive or something unique to them beyond just cash is a great way of feeling like they belong to a brand. And out in the wild, I think a great example of a brand doing this really well, or an organization doing this really well, is called Rock Corps. Can I just understand if anyone's heard of Rock Corps in this room? No, oh, a couple of you. Okay, so let me explain. So Rock Corps are an organization. Their ultimate goal is to drive more volunteering in communities. And the way that they do this is they recognize their volunteers with a ticket to a really big headline event. So when they first launched, it was like Pharrell Williams and Lady Gaga. And now I don't really know the names because I'm in my mid-30s and I kind of don't know who's new anymore. But I'm assured that they're big names. So the idea is that you can't win a ticket. You have to volunteer your time to be recognized to go and experience this huge concert. And the concept is called Give, Get Given. So you give something to your local community and we'll give you a ticket and a reward back. And to make this work from a financial perspective, Rock Corps partner with brands around the world to bring this to life in communities that those brands want to impact. So in Europe, they partner with Ibis, who is owned by Accor, and they're looking to impact communities and build brand recognition with their customers locally. And this is so successful that Rock Corps have replicated this model around the world with different brands impacting different communities and recognizing those brands' customers. Now, if we think about, from a CRM perspective, how we can recognize our customers in daily interactions, of course, gamification is a great way to do this. And this is a really straightforward example from FinTech, Bread Financial. They work with one of their travel partners who was really looking to kind of gamify their loyalty experience. And the creative that they went for is pretty straightforward. You can understand where you are now and where you'll get to next in terms of that loyalty program. But despite its kind of intuitive way of looking, it delivered an incredibly high rate of engagement. They saw down the funnel a 700% lift in spend and a 490% lift in conversion. So I believe that this kind of shows that Maslow, despite it being 75 years ago, the idea of recognition really does drive results. So the final part of Maslow's hierarchy was self-actualization. I spoke about that kind of Mad Men type experience in the 50s when this was created, where advertising was no longer about that product, it was about that lifestyle. And whilst I think that's changed now in 2025, I think the idea around how brands meet us in our most aspirational selves is beginning to take shape with AI. So what better way to place us in this aspirational category than in the travel category? 67% of travelers say they already use AI tools when they're planning their trip. Raise your hand if that's you. Do you use AI tools to plan trips? Maybe a little bit less than 67%, but I think this is going to grow exponentially. Booking.com have done a ton of research around how they believe AI is going to change the shape of the travel industry. And within some of this data, they say that 60% of people are seeking experiences that support communities. And the way that I think about these two data points from a strategy perspective is it demonstrates that more of us, more of the time, are really going into that long tail of aspiration. So my aspirational idea of a trip probably looks different to yours, and throughout the room, we've probably got hundreds of different aspirations, right? And AI is supporting us to meet that need. Now, I absolutely want to support experiences that support local communities, but if I'm really honest, when I travel, me and my partner travel as foodies. We love to find restaurants that we haven't heard of. We love to explore new locations. And so in the next slide, I'm going to play a screen recording of how I look to book this trip using Booking.com's AI tools. And there's a part A and a part B. So starting with part A, I typed in my own language, best rated trips for foodies about 3 hours from London. And Booking.com did a great job of showing me some properties that were best rated. They're not far from London. A lot of them were in London. Pretty good. But then I used their beta version, which was in partnership with OpenAI. And I used a similar language input, and it became a conversation. So they asked me if I was open to different suggestions. They were able to get more responses from me, as you can see me typing here. Yes, we would love suggestions. And it gave me a full itinerary. It showcased why they'd chosen specific destinations, which you can see coming up here. And it also gave me a call to action for showing flight options as well. So really exponentially elevating that experience, helping me get into that long tail of looking for a foodie trip with my partner. And we know that moving into this long tail is supported within our CRM programs as well. You've seen this morning that DaVinci can really offer that opportunity to create that one-to-one meaningful conversation that really moves into that long tail of aspiration to bring that to life within the inbox and in mobile. So I'm going to leave you with some thoughts that I hope will be either a refresher to you or perhaps something new that you can take back to your teams. We started with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. 75 years on, I'm proposing there's a customer hierarchy of needs that with our marketing hat and our psychology hat, we can start to think about. It covers where those deficiency needs might be, how we can really understand what our customers would like to have a meaningful one-to-one conversation. And it moves more closely towards aspiration as well in terms of growth needs and how technology and data can support that. And I'd really like you to remember that thing that's often forgotten about this framework, which is it's not linear. You're not having to do one thing after the other before you move on to the next. So you can do away with that calendar and you can think about how you can have a one-to-one conversation. Now, I mentioned at the beginning of this that I have a little bit of training in my spare time around psychotherapy, and I volunteer for an organization, a charitable organization, and the way that they train us to meet somebody for the first time, to make that conversation as meaningful as possible, is to ask 3 things. And the first is, what does this person need right now? Where would they like to be? And how can we facilitate them to get there? And I wonder if you can experiment with your teams, perhaps tomorrow, maybe as you think about 2026 planning, to start asking these questions about your customers and consider where that might take you in your marketing programs. And if you need support with facilitating those types of sessions, myself and my wider team are really happy to do that. You can come and find me. I'm not easy to miss today, or feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn as well. Thank you very much for listening.